The Action Max was released in 1987 by Worlds of Wonder. At that time, the Action Max faced major competition from the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Sega Master System, both of which had cartridge-based games. Instead of cartridges, the Action Max used VHS tapes, a decision that gave the player a lifelike experience. In fact, the Action Max advertised itself as the first real-action game system, and stood out because of its use of live-action footage.
Welcome to final exams, Lieutenant. This is where we find out if you're good enough to fly with the Sonic Furies.
Sonic Fury is the game that came bundled with the system, and is a good example of what the console has to offer. The only controller for the Action Max was a gun, and as such, all Action Max games were designed like a shooting gallery. Film footage was compiled and players scored points for hitting targets. The only goal was to achieve a high score. The system did not include a built-in VHS player to play the games. Instead, the console was to be hooked up to an already existing VHS player, and a sensor was stuck into the corner of the television to register how the game was played.
Stand by for target practice.
The Action Max gun could register the flashing on the television and compare it to the flashing picked up by the sensor. If the flashing was in sequence, then the player scored points. The Action Max could also make allied targets that lost the player points if shot. Even with the varying targets, the Action Max still suffered from a limited amount of interactivity. The videos were incapable of responding to user input, and so the action was always predetermined. The Action Max did, however, feature immersive stereo audio, which was a major selling point. The console even came with its own pair of headphones. While the Action Max may not have been wildly successful, it did display some interesting concepts. Other systems like the Sega CD played with the idea of having video games feature live-action footage, and the use of stereo audio later developed into the surround sound that many games feature today. At the very least, the Action Max stands as an interesting footnote in the history of video games.